97.3 ESPN presents The Sports Bash with Mike Gill. It's time for Football at 4 with Adam Kaplan, powered by InsideTheBirds.com.
I think we have the ability to do something really special with this group, but it's going to take a lot of hard work.
Now, live from inside the Matt Black Kia Studios, it's Football at 4.
All right, time now for Football at 4, powered by InsideTheBirds.com. Adam Kaplan is here today. Football at 4. Adam Kaplan, InsideTheBirds.com. He's with us today for another edition of Football at 4. Welcome back, Adam. What's hot with you?
Boys, good to talk to you today. It looks like the weather's kind of cleared up. A little nice day out there, a little bit humid, but look, we're moving on here. The Eagles are, obviously at the end of their OTAs in terms of virtually with the veterans. The rookies are going to be working with the coaches another week, but for all intents and purposes, it's auto training camp, and about a month. We think, or actually less than that. It's just a matter of what's going to pass, what not pass with the NFL and NFLPA in terms of will they shorten it up? Will it just start on time? We don't know that, but I'm told as about an hour ago the talks are still ongoing.
All right, let's start with obviously the big news this week and get your reaction now that it's a couple of days and see what the Eagles might be thinking about Brandon Brooks. How big of an injury? How does it affect the line? And obviously we'll move on to in-house options, out of the organization options. But first, how big of a loss is this?
All right, so it's massive. So I was talking to a pro personnel source who another team who one of the teams he was given last season of the 9 teams was given the Eagles, and he said that Brooks of the 9 teams, so he scouted 18 starting guards. He was by far the best guard that he scouted on tape. And look, it's a massive loss. He's their best lineman. That's no knock on Lane Johnson, who's obviously very, very good. It's a great, by the way, arguably the NFL's best right side of an offensive line. And now without Brandon Brooks, likely obviously for the regular season, just a matter of he had surgery today. It's just a matter of can he come back within 6 months? But let's just assume he won't be back. It's a massive loss. We could get into their in-house replacements, but Brooks' reputation, Mike, is that he's a great football player. But the reality is, you're probably not going to see him play till he's 32 years old, which is next summer. When he turns 32, and as I outlined first for our Inside the Birds show, our podcast, his contract basically it makes him a lock to be on the roster in 2021. They can get out of it of the contract after 21, but he will almost certainly be an Eagle next season.
All right, so massive loss, obviously. First, options in-house, and is that where the Eagles want to go first? Do they want someone in-house to win that position?
Yeah, so here's the way that it was explained to me literally within 15 minutes after I heard of Brooks getting that injury and them having to go through the scenarios. Matt Pryor's up first. He was really drafted to play tackle, Mike, and then because they like to cross-train their young players, they gave Pryor snaps at guard. Now, remember, he's a massive guy. He's 6'7". You typically don't see guards, Mike, over 6'5". It's usually not done. Todd Herremans did it. He was a little bit over 6'5", and Todd was able to extend his career. But they did it with Pryor a little bit out of necessity last summer because they were so young with their backups. They tried it. It worked. He not only earned a roster spot, they were intrigued and talking to the Eagles about him. They thought the Giants game, while his tape was inconsistent, when he played well, he looked like a starting player. He's so strong, so they loved that about him. And when he took over against the Giants, remember that's when Brooks got hurt and was lost for the season. So Pryor is really the only realistic guy to start there now. Jeff Mosher said he's heard that Herbig could challenge, based on someone he talked to, but what I'm told is what I'm going to stick with. It's Pryor in-house, and then about 3 or 4 names that they'll look at as veterans. I do expect them to sign somebody by training camp. It doesn't have to be today. It doesn't have to be tomorrow. It's no different than running back. Folks, they don't have to do anything. There's no football going on. So just to settle that, I think sometimes we overreact. I'm not saying they won't sign someone tomorrow, but they don't need to do anything right now.
Going in-house first is totally fine, and I definitely understand why they would do that. But I guess my big concern is, what happens if one more player goes down? How can you rely on a Mailata at right tackle? That's the only position he could play. Or as you mentioned, Herbig or Jack
right,
Driscoll.
Josh.
I mean, what do you do?
Yeah, it's Hunter. It's actually left and right tackle for Mailata. Okay, that's the first thing. They love Mailata, and the problem is that Mailata has never played in an NFL game before. In fact, if you look at all the backups on the roster, they have one guy who's played in an NFL game, and that is the guy who right now would be the starter, Matt Pryor. So that look, it's a problem. There's no question. Moshe and I brought this up on Inside the Birds, and we did a show where we looked at the depth on the roster. It was from about a week ago, and you can get that, by the way, on any platform, whether it's Android or Apple, and we made it very clear. If they suffer an injury to one of their starters, they've got a problem. And guess what, folks? I wish I didn't jinx it, but they've got a problem right now, and there's no other way to get around it. They need to get some experience back there.
All right, Adam Kaplan, InsideTheBirds.com. Football at 4 here on the Sports Bash. So then, obviously, as soon as this happened, everybody wants to go Jason Peters. Now, Jason Peters has never played guard, let alone on the right side of the line, which from my research he did back in 2005. He played some right tackle. But moving him to right guard, does that sound even like a remote possibility?
Well, he goes. This is where it goes to your question. This goes on the never to say never list. I do that when I know that's not even being discussed or thought of. Because sometimes if you can't find the player that you want, go, well, we have a guy that wants to play at 38 years old. He's made it very clear. The Eagles, by the way, have not cut off communication with his agent, and it's a guy that clearly they've had interest in bringing back. He has an interest in coming back, but Jason is looking for a certain type of job and ability to make a decent amount of money, and that certainly is part of the reason why he's not back. So we'll see, Mike. But no, the people I trust have not even mentioned it. So, barring a fairly significant surprise, that will not be happening.
What are your thoughts about Kyle Long? I know he retired, but not really, and Chris Long was here. So is there any conversation about Kyle Long at all?
No, Hunter, I'm told by a source who's talked to Long last week that it's either he's going to come back or he's going to go into television or media. So the problem with Kyle Long is this. It's real simple. He's 31 years old. He's had several surgeries over the last 4 to 5 years. He has missed, get this, folks, 34 games over the last 4 seasons. That is not, as we outlined for our listeners on Inside the Birds, what the Eagles want to do. I don't rule it out because he's a gifted player, but the Eagles need somebody they can count on. They can't sign somebody who they're not really sure is going to be able to stay on the field. And if you look at Kyle Long's tweet, by the way, folks, this week, he made it clear if he doesn't know if he wants to put his body through playing again. That was really my read on what he put out there. So I'm not going to rule that one out, but he's on the 4 players that I think make a lot of sense in terms of ability. And he is super athletic, by the way, but he's missed too much time. I would not put that as a high probability.
Now, Adam, you had tweeted out earlier this week when it happened a bunch of free agents that are out there. Larry Warford at the top of that list, and obviously he was released for salary cap reasons. But of the guys on that list, do you think any are legitimate options?
Yeah, I would not agree that it was a salary cap issue. Players rarely are cut for that. If you wanted the guy back, you cut his pay. You go, here it is. We'll cut your pay and you come back. They really wanted him back, Mike, he would have been there. Here's the problem with Larry Warford. I checked into this. Outstanding run blocker, not a real good athlete, tough guy. He only turns just 29. He's not as old as people thought, but not a great athlete. He's not really well-versed in pass protection, despite how much they obviously have thrown over the years. Good player, not great player. I know he's made Pro Bowls, but Pro Bowls really not a reflection of how good a player is, so yeah, you're right. He's the best player out of all of them. Ron Leary. By the way, Ron Leary played for Rich Scangarello, who's the Eagles' senior offensive assistant last season when Scangarello was the offensive coordinator for the Broncos. He was hurt last season. The Broncos declined his option. He's out there. He's experienced. You might remember him from the Cowboys as well. Josh Klein, who was a surprise release by the Vikings. He's a run guy, not a good pass blocker. To me, the best guy on my list is Warford. You got to live with he's not the best pass blocker. You just want someone who's dependable. He's pretty dependable. He's a good football player. I don't quite understand what I've heard in terms of money. Some people have said he wants $7 million, $8 million. I don't know if that's true, but what I do know is if the Eagles want to bring in just one veteran, which is obviously all they're going to do, he is by far the best guy available.
All right, then the final option, I guess, would be trade. And there's been a couple of rumors and some names, but do you think Howie gets to camp, sees what Pryor does or Herbig or Driscoll and one of his in-house guys, and then decides, you know what, I got to pick up the phone?
It's all under consideration. Here's what someone told me, which I thought was a really good point. When you are in a situation like this, you go over not only your emergency list, the guys that we just talked about, but you start going over your pre-draft grades over the last 3 to 4 years. And if there's a guy that you see that's not starting for a team, and you call them and go, hey, we like this player, we'd be great. If you don't think well of him, we'd be interested in trading for him, and that's what you do. But without the players getting on the field, like right now, Mike, the Eagles would probably have a little bit more urgency. If we had football right now, remember, this would be it. This week would be the mandatory camp. This would have been a perfect time to get these guys in here, and where I think they would have had some urgency to get something done. And don't forget, Jeff Statland, their offensive line coach, will weigh heavily into this. They do not do anything on the offensive line without going through Statland. They'll want him to watch tape. They'll want to get his opinion of particularly the younger players, whether it's Nate Herbig, who we mentioned, or Pryor, or Keegan Renner, or Sua Peta, the guys that they're bringing back. Jack Driscoll, who we didn't mention. Jack Driscoll is a guy that the Eagles like. They see him as a right tackle and right guard, and potentially taking snaps at center down the line. But it's hard to imagine right now that he's in the thought process to be the starting right guard, because he's never played in an NFL game, and right now Pryor's clearly ahead of him.
All right, Adam Kaplan, Football at 4, powered by InsideTheBirds.com, at Kaplan NFL on Twitter. Jalen Reagor, let's go to him. We talked about his role a couple of weeks ago, and did Doug Peterson change the role for Jalen Reagor? Did he diminish the role that Rieger might have?
No, Mike, and I get why people feel that way, because I don't want to say it came out of left field, but here's the way I would look at it. Had they had an off-season program, meaning they would be on the field, Rieger would have had over 20 off-season practices. Rookie minicamp for 3 days, OTAs, 15 and some odd practices. He would have had 2 June camps. The first one in the first week of June, and then the second one with the veterans coming in. So you're talking about 24 practices or so where he would have already played. He would have already gotten snaps at the Z position, which is Deshaun's position. He would have gotten some at X. He would have got some at slot. The way the Eagles envision him is, yes, Deshaun's eventual replacement at Z. They also see him playing in the slot. He's going to be a gadget player. I'm going to make a prediction, despite what Peterson said. He will lead the Eagles receiver in receptions this season if he plays 16 games. He will also lead them in snaps. That's my prediction. I know that it's going out there on a limb considering what Peterson said, but I know what their plan is internally. They want this guy on the field a lot, and they're going to find a way to do it as long as he knows what he's doing. We should mention that. It's not easy for rookies to learn, especially when you don't have an offseason, but from what I understand, he's a pretty smart kid, and I have no problem with what Peterson said in terms of giving him one position, let him learn that, and then going forward.
Do you think Peterson saying this has anything to do with maybe last year and J.J. Arcega-Whiteside and how overwhelmed he was with the playbook in certain areas?
You know what, Hunter, here's the problem with J.J. Arcega-Whiteside. He got hurt. He literally could not run. When he had a significant foot injury, I'm told, and it happened early in the season. He tried to tough it out. He did an interview maybe like the last 6 weeks. We talked about the pain he was in and how at times he didn't know what he was doing because he had not had a lot of practice time. So I wouldn't say like you could compare the two situations because as a matter of fact, if you remember, and I don't know why they did this, he's really only an X receiver, which means he's an outside receiver. You can't really play him in the slot. He's not sudden. He's not a short area guy. He's a contested catch guy. That's what they need without Alshon Jeffery. So I wouldn't say that, but I get your point. It is not easy to learn how to play receiver as a rookie in the National Football League, particularly when you don't have an offseason. I cannot underestimate that fact. It is going to be harder for Rieger, but he's a guy that they absolutely need. They don't have a lot of options. I think that's pretty clear here.
Let's go to Jeffrey, because is his role in the offense going to be bigger than maybe we anticipated?
Yeah, Mike, this is interesting. So I will admit I was wrong in December when on Inside the Birds, I said I see no way that he's back next season. I'm gonna own it. I'm not gonna run away from it. I had not even asked. I just thought that there's no way. The injury, which is 9 to 12 month rehab. Remember, he suffered it against the Giants on December 11th. And with all the stuff going out there, he clearly was not the same player before he got hurt. So when Jeff and I were doing shows in the offseason, I said, I need to find out about this, what's going to happen with Jeffrey. I said, so we do our show Inside the Birds, and I said, hey, I know it sounds hard to believe, but he's going to be back. I know a lot of it's contractually related. The dead money on his contract, if they cut him, is significant. It's just, you just can't do it. It's prohibitive. So he's going to be on the team this season, and I will say this: the relationship between Jeffrey and Carson Wentz is better than you think. He did fray some relationships in the building a little bit last season, but they do like Alshon overall. Alshon's clearly aware, and they communicate with him a lot. He knows what he's got to do, and whenever he comes back, Mike, he's going to play his X position. They really need someone physical on the outside, and he would be that guy, but the problem is, Mike, we don't know how many snaps he'll be able to handle whenever he gets back, and that's something they're not going to know until he starts practicing.
Yeah, the weird part about this is, and let's just assume, like JJ makes a nice jump forward and he's being productive and Rieger's got a roll. It's almost like, how do you wedge him in if the offense is kind of rolling when he's ready to go, which might not be 6 to 8 weeks into the season?
Here's the thing, though. Would you guys not agree? A healthy Alshon Jeffery is a pretty decent starting receiver, and so on. By the way, they don't have J.J. Arcega-Whiteside. We don't know about him, and I know he was drafted to take Jeffrey's job eventually, but we really don't know anything about Arcega-Whiteside because he was a non-factor as a rookie. The Eagles, talking to them privately, they're still pretty high on him, but until he gets out there, you don't know. The Eagles are a better football team with a healthy Alshon Jeffery.
Yeah,
because he will. The one thing that he does really well, it's not just contested catches. As someone who I really trust with the Eagles told me, he's one of the receivers on their football team that will attack the football. He's not just a contested catch guy. He will actually go after it, which is something that Arcega-Whiteside could learn. Arcega-Whiteside's a different type of physical receiver than Jeffrey.
We got asked this question by a caller, actually, the other day, or a texter, and it was, is it bad that we can't take Doug Peterson for face value at all? Like, does it matter? And I thought to myself, all that matters is winning, right? I mean, if you win, it shouldn't matter. But it is weird that, we question all these things that he's saying sometimes, and the Mike Groh situation occurred. I just feel like with Dougie P, it's way more than, say, some other coaches around this city.
I would say this. Doug sometimes says something to make the media happy. This is something that I've had an issue with since he became the head coach at 16. He says one thing, does another. But I also have said that in terms of 32 head coaches, whether people want to believe this or not, I believe it because I study this stuff. He's probably one of the more honest coaches, and even he says stuff that you shake your head with. Now, I'll give you the Miles Sanders situation, right? He said it's going to be a committee. Well, he went on a Philly radio station, and he was asked a particular question, and he finally admitted that it will not be a committee. Remember how many times, guys, he said it would be a committee? I told you guys 2 months ago there will be zero committee. There's no chance of it, that Sanders is going to be the guy. He actually confirmed almost exactly to the words that I said. We know what Miles Sanders is. He's a special athlete. They all know it internally, and he's going to be the guy there at running back. Even if they would have signed Carlos Hyde, he was there to back up Sanders, give him a spell every now and then, and be an insurance policy. Miles Sanders is the guy, and no one's debating this in NovaCare.
All right, Adam Kaplan, Football 4, powered by InsideTheBirds.com. What did you take from Pederson's comments on Jalen Hurts? Is there anything that suggests that there's something there, or is that just him giving a very bland answer? Because he really mentioned that they're really, it sounded like feeding him just quarterback plays at this point, right? Is that what you got from that?
Yeah. Now I'll say this. He didn't have to come out and say, he's done a really good job of learning the offense. I mean, he felt like he wanted to do that, and that's Pederson's with him on these
Zoom calls?
Yeah, whatever you want to call them, on the virtual off-season calls, and that's great, and he would know better than all of us. But until he gets out there, you don't know what his role is going to be. Nate Sudfeld is their backup. No one's debating that. But I still think my original prediction is that he's going to be playing more quarterback for them. The key for him is, and I guess this is what Doug is talking about, how quickly can he learn? That will help him get on the field, because we did our show with Greg Cosell of NFL Films. We dropped it this morning on the Cowboys, actually on the Eagles and Cowboys. We're actually dropping the Eagles on Monday morning. But I'll give you a little bit of a hint. Cosell goes through kind of what the speed element's going to mean for this football team, obviously with Rieger on the field and Djax. But if you stick Jalen Hurts out there as a wildcat quarterback to give the defense something else, this offense has got a chance to be more interesting than it was in 2017, and we know how great that offense was. So I look forward to seeing it. The thing is, Mike and Hunter, we just don't know until these young guys get on the field how much of an impact they could have. Like literally, usually you could tell anyone who was at the OTAs last year kind of knew about Boston Scott. When I saw Boston Scott in their offseason program last year, I was like, wow, who is this guy? And you saw how well he did once he got a chance in Week 10. So we're not having that, and this is why we have to temper our enthusiasm for certain players. But some of them are just going to have to play, like Jalen Reagor, because they have nowhere else to go, and they need him to perform. And from what I've heard from the Eagles, they're expected to perform this season.
Now, Doug did say that we are going to continue to look and see if we can add value, add depth, and competition to the running back room. But we are very comfortable and excited about Miles. So I guess adding a veteran is still not off the table?
It's not. No. Look, they would love to have Devonta Freeman. It's just that he wants a certain amount of money. He wanted more than the $4 million in total compensation that the Seahawks were willing to offer him. That was the same offer, essentially, that they gave and agreed to with Carlos Hyde. So, Mike, right now, here's the issue. If Miles Sanders were to suffer an injury, you have to ask yourself, if the Eagles, do you feel comfortable with Boston Scott? I know they like him, but if Miles Sanders couldn't play for 2 months, are you really telling me that Boston Scott's going to be your starting running back? I don't see that. I don't think the Eagles see that either.
Adam Kaplan and, of course, InsideTheBirds.com. Check them out all the time for the latest on the Eagles and the latest podcast with Jeff Mosher. Tomorrow, Andrew DeCecco is back. We asked this question on our YouTube community page, which was, which first down wideout will make the biggest impact in 2020? 74% went Jalen Reagor over Ruggs, Judy, Lamb, and Jefferson. I mean, I was shocked. I mean, I thought a lot of Eagles fans were a little turned off by that pick, and now 74% think he'll make the biggest impact.
Whoa. 74% of the people. How many people voted? Could you tell?
About 400.
Really? And I'm, it's not a secret, I'm very bullish on Rieger, but, talking to the Raiders last week, he's going to be fine for training camp after that, little freak injury that he had, helping a friend move. He's going to probably be around 60 catches, 55, 60 catches. I've got Rieger for 60, around 3.5, 4 a game. I think that's realistic. I'm not going overboard with it. But Justin Jefferson, he's going to start. I'm going to give Jefferson a few more catches, 65 to 70. Michael Pittman, by the way, the Colts, who I absolutely love, I think he's going to be around 65 to 70. So I think he's clearly top 6 or 7. It just depends on his ability to learn and get this offense. This is not Doug Peterson's offense is not easy to learn. Just talking to guys who've worked for Doug, really good offense. He's obviously a great play caller. And don't forget, they've got a new receivers coach, so I look forward to seeing that.
All right, well, it's like a Seinfeld episode. We're going to bring it all the way back to Brandon Brooks to get you out of here. Losing Brooks, what separation does that mean between Eagles and Cowboys? Is that a difference maker?
Yeah, I saw Marcus Hayes' headline there for his piece. It doesn't help. Okay, it doesn't help, but I would reduce their offense just a little bit because we don't know about Matt Pryor as a full-time starter if he is going to be that guy, or whoever they bring in clearly is going to be a downgrade. So they're just clearly not going to be as good. It's hard to quantify, Mike, how much less of an offense the Eagles' offense will be without Brandon Brooks. It's hard, it's always hard to tell. The guy's an interior lineman, but you're talking about an elite player. Let's not forget this guy's elite at his position. So it's going to be a little bit of a factor, there's no question.
Great stuff as always. Adam Kaplan, InsideTheBirds.com. Football at 4 here on the Sports Bash. We covered a bunch, pal.
Thanks, guys. Sounds good. See you.
All right, Adam Kaplan, like August, appeared via the Boardwalk Honda hotline.